I stood at the kitchen counter at 7 in the morning, making breakfast for 4 people who would never thank me. The eggs sizzled in the pan while I mentally reviewed the presentation I had been working on until 2 in the morning. My phone buzzed with another message from my boss, asking about the financial projections I had sent at 11 the night before. I responded while flipping eggs, a skill I had perfected over years of being told that multitasking was what women did best. My mother walked into the kitchen wearing her silk robe, the expensive one my brother had bought her for Christmas. She glanced at the stove and wrinkled her nose. "You burned the toast again," she said, not looking at me. I had not burned the toast. The edges were golden brown, exactly how she usually preferred them. But I said nothing, just put 2 fresh slices in the toaster and started over. This was easier than the argument that would follow if I defended myself. My father came down next, already dressed in his golf clothes. He was retired now, spending his days at the country club while I worked 60-hour weeks at Westfield Pharmaceuticals in Chicago. He poured himself coffee from the pot I had made and sat at the table without acknowledging my presence. "Where's Gregory?" he asked my mother. "Still sleeping," she said, settling into her chair. "He worked so hard yesterday." Gregory, my younger brother by 3 years, had come home at 11 the night before after drinks with his friends. I had heard him stumble up the stairs while I was finalizing the market analysis that could potentially bring in millions for the company. But in this house, his rest was sacred, and my exhaustion was invisible. I placed plates in front of my parents, the eggs perfect, the toast golden, the fruit arranged the way my mother liked. Neither of them looked up. "The kitchen floor needs mopping," my father said, scrolling through his phone. "It looks filthy." I had mopped it yesterday morning before leaving for work at 7:30, but I nodded, knowing that disagreement would only make things worse. "Cecilia," my mother said, and I turned. "Did you pick up my prescription?" "Yes, it is on the counter by the phone." "And my dry cleaning?" "In your closet." She made a small sound of acknowledgement and went back to her breakfast. I had learned long ago not to expect praise for doing what they considered my obligation. I was 29 years old, had a master's degree in business administration, and was one of the top performers at a major pharmaceutical company. But in this house, I was still just the daughter who existed to make their lives easier. Gregory finally appeared at 7:45, wearing sweatpants and a wrinkled shirt. He dropped into his chair and immediately picked up his phone. "Make me something with bacon," he said without looking at me. "I need to leave for work in 10 minutes, I said carefully. "So make it quick." He still had not looked up. I turned back to the stove, cracked more eggs, and started cooking. My phone buzzed again. 3 messages now from my boss, and a meeting reminder that I had a presentation at 9. I would have to drive faster than usual to make it on time. When I placed the plate in front of Gregory, he took one look and pushed it away. "These eggs are runny. You know I hate runny eggs." They were not runny. They were exactly the way he had eaten them 100 times before. But I took the plate back, dumped the contents in the trash, and started again. My hands were shaking now, and I hated myself for it. "You know what you are good at?" my father said, still not looking up from his phone. "Cleaning. You should really consider doing it professionally. At least then you would be useful." The words hit me like a slap, but I kept my face neutral. I had learned that reacting only made things worse. My mother laughed softly, a sound that made my stomach turn. "She is good at following instructions," my mother added. "That is a valuable skill for someone like her." Someone like her. Someone like me. They meant someone without real worth, without real value beyond the services I could provide. I finished Gregory's eggs, placed them in front of him, and grabbed my bag. "I need to go," I said. "The dishes," my mother said. "I will do them tonight." "You will do them now." We raised you better than to leave a mess." I looked at the clock. 8 minutes until I absolutely had to leave. I turned on the water and started washing dishes, scrubbing faster than I should, splashing soapy water on my blouse. Behind me I could hear Gregory eating, my mother discussing her plans for the day, my father talking about his golf game. Not one of them asked about my presentation. Not one of them knew that I had been working on the biggest deal of my career, that I had barely slept in 3 days, that everything I had worked for in the past 6 months would be decided in the meeting I was about to attend. I finished the dishes with 2 minutes to spare, grabbed my bag again, and headed for the door. "Pick up dinner on your way home," my mother called after me. "Something nice. We have guests coming." I did not ask who. I just left, pulling the door closed behind me on another morning in a house where I had never been seen as anything more than a servant. The drive to Westfield Pharmaceuticals took 40 minutes in traffic, and I used every second of it to center myself. I had worked at the company for 5 years, climbing from an entry-level analyst position to senior strategist in the business development department. I was good at what I did, maybe better than good, but I had learned early that confidence had to be earned twice over when you were a woman, in a room full of men who assumed their presence alone qualified them for respect. The deal I was presenting today had the potential to change everything. 6 months ago, I had identified a small biotech firm called Helix Innovations that had developed a breakthrough treatment for a rare autoimmune disease. The science was solid, the market potential was enormous, and the acquisition price was reasonable. I had run the numbers, built the financial models, and prepared projections that showed this single acquisition could generate over $6 million in revenue within the first year. But convincing the board was another matter entirely. Pharmaceutical acquisitions were risky, and this particular board preferred safe investments over innovative ones. I had spent weeks preparing for every possible objection, every question they might throw at me. I parked in my usual spot and walked through the glass doors of the building, nodding to the security guard who had seen me arrive early and leave late more times than I could count. The office was already buzzing with activity, people rushing between meetings, phones ringing, the familiar hum of a company that never truly slept. My colleague Jeffrey was waiting by my desk, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this," he said, handing me one. Jeffrey was one of the few people at Westfield who had always treated me like an equal. We had started around the same time, and while his career had progressed smoothly, mine had required fighting for every promotion, every opportunity to prove myself. "You look stressed," he said. "I have been up since 5 making breakfast and doing housework before the biggest presentation of my career. Your family still treating you like staff?" "Every single day." He shook his head. "You need to move out." "I have been looking, but rent in Chicago is insane, and I have been putting every extra dollar toward paying off my student loans." "Well, after today, maybe you will get that promotion and raise you have been pushing for." I smiled, but the truth was I had learned not to expect anything. I had watched male colleagues get promoted for ideas I had given them, watched them receive credit for work I had done, watched them advance while I was told to be patient, to wait my turn, to understand that these things took time. The conference room was on the 12th floor, a massive space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The board members were already filing in when Jeffrey and I arrived. I recognized most of them. Walter, the chief financial officer who never smiled. Patricia, the head of research who had been skeptical of my work from the beginning, and several others whose approval I would need if this deal was going to happen. And then there was the person everyone was talking about. Director Harrison had flown in from the West Coast specifically for this meeting. He was a legend in the pharmaceutical industry, a man who had built 3 successful companies and was now worth over $200 million. Westfield had brought him on as a strategic advisor 6 months ago, and his presence at any meeting meant the stakes were higher than usual. I had never met him in person, only seen him in company newsletters, and heard the stories about his ruthless business acumen and his ability to spot potential in deals that others overlooked. He walked in exactly at 9, and the room shifted. Everyone straightened in their seats. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Harrison was in his mid-50s, tall, with silver hair, and the kind of presence that demanded attention without effort. He took a seat at the head of the table and glanced around the room until his eyes landed on me. "You must be Cecilia," he said. "I have been reading your proposal. Let us hear what you have." I stood, connected my laptop to the projector, and began. The first few slides covered the basics: the current market landscape, the gap that Helix Innovations was positioned to fill, the competitive advantage their treatment offered. I spoke clearly, deliberately, making eye contact with each board member as I presented the data that I had spent months compiling. Patricia interrupted first. "The patient population for this treatment is relatively small. How can you justify the acquisition cost?" "The patient population is currently small because the disease is underdiagnosed," I said. "Our market research suggests that with proper awareness campaigns and expanded screening, the treatable population could increase by 40% within 3 years. The revenue projections account for this growth." Walter spoke next. "What about regulatory approval? The FDA process alone could delay revenue generation by years. Helix already has Phase 3 trial results that exceed expectations. I have been in contact with their regulatory team, and they are confident about approval within 18 months. Even if there are delays, the long-term revenue potential outweighs the short-term risk." The questions kept coming, each one designed to poke holes in my proposal. But I had prepared for this, had anticipated every objection, had backup data for every claim I made. I watched Harrison as I spoke, trying to read his expression, but his face remained neutral. After 40 minutes, I reached my final slide, a projection showing that this acquisition would generate over $6 million in first-year revenue and position Westfield as a leader in autoimmune treatment development. "That is my recommendation," I said. "I believe this acquisition represents not just a sound financial investment, but a strategic opportunity to establish Westfield in a growing market segment." The room was quiet. Patricia was frowning at her notes. Walter was typing something on his phone. Jeffrey gave me a small nod from his seat along the wall. Harrison leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "Questions?" he asked the room. Several board members raised concerns about timing, about competition, about manufacturing costs. I answered each one, pulling up additional slides I had prepared for exactly these scenarios. Finally, Harrison raised his hand, and the room fell silent. "I have seen a lot of proposals in my career," he said. "Most of them are mediocre at best. People throw together numbers and hope no one looks too closely at the assumptions." He paused, and I felt my heart hammering. "This is not one of those proposals." Harrison stood and walked to the projection screen, examining the financial model I had displayed. "These projections are conservative," he said. "The methodology is sound, the risk assessment is thorough, and the strategic vision is exactly what this company needs." He turned to face the board. "I recommend we move forward with this acquisition immediately." The room erupted in conversation. Patricia looked shocked. Walter was nodding slowly. Other board members were flipping through their copies of my proposal, suddenly interested in details they had ignored during my presentation. Harrison walked over to where I was standing and extended his hand. "Exceptional work," he said. "We are grateful to have someone of your caliber on the team." I shook his hand, barely able to process what was happening. 5 years of fighting for recognition, 5 years of having my ideas questioned and my work scrutinized. And now this moment of validation from someone whose opinion carried more weight than everyone else in the room combined. "Thank you," I managed to say. "I want you leading the integration team once this acquisition goes through," Harrison continued. "You have proven you understand both the science and the business. That combination is rare." The meeting continued for another hour, discussing logistics and timelines. But the decision had been made. My proposal was approved, and I was now responsible for a deal that would define my career. When everyone finally filed out, Jeffrey pulled me aside. "That was incredible," he said. Harrison never gives compliments like that. You just became his favorite person at this company." I felt dizzy with relief and exhaustion. "I need to sit down." "You need to celebrate. Drinks after work?" "I have to pick up dinner for my family. They have guests coming." Jeffrey's smile faded. "Cecilia, you just landed a $6 million deal, and you are worried about picking up dinner? It is complicated." "It is not complicated. They treat you like garbage, and you keep letting them." He was right, but walking away from family was not as simple as everyone made it sound. I had been raised to believe that family obligations came first, that respect for parents was non-negotiable, that a good daughter sacrificed her own needs for the family's comfort. But as I packed up my materials and headed back to my desk, I could not stop thinking about the contrast between how I was treated at work and how I was treated at home. At Westfield, I had just been praised by a man worth $200 million. I had earned the respect of a board that rarely approved anything without extensive debate. I had proven my worth in measurable, undeniable ways. And tonight, I would go home and be told I was good for cleaning. The rest of the day passed in a blur of emails and congratulations from colleagues who had heard about the meeting. My boss called me into his office to tell me that a promotion was likely coming, that my work had not gone unnoticed, that this deal could open doors for me within the company. But even as I smiled and thanked him, part of me was already dreading the evening ahead. I left the office at 6, stopped by the restaurant my mother had specified, and picked up enough food for 6 people. The bags were heavy, and I struggled to carry them to my car along with my laptop bag and the stack of folders I needed to review for tomorrow. When I arrived home at 7:15, the house was full of voices. My parents had invited friends over, and everyone was gathered in the living room, drinking wine and laughing. I walked past them to the kitchen, set down the food, and started unpacking containers. My mother appeared in the doorway. "You are late," she said. "I left work as soon as I could. Traffic was terrible." "Well, everyone is hungry. Start plating the food." I wanted to tell her about the meeting, about the deal, about Harrison's words. I wanted to share the biggest professional achievement of my life with someone who was supposed to care. Instead, I opened cabinets and started arranging food on serving platters. Gregory wandered in, already on his 3rd drink based on the flush in his cheeks. "About time," he said. "What took you so long?" "I was working." "Right, working." He said it like he did not quite believe me, like my job was some elaborate excuse to avoid my real responsibilities at home. I finished plating the food and carried the first tray out to the dining room. My parents' friends were seated around the table, and my father was holding court, telling some story about his golf game that had everyone laughing. "There she is," my father said when he saw me. "Finally, everyone, this is my daughter Cecilia. She is good for cleaning and running errands." The table laughed, and I felt my face burn. I set down the tray and went back for the next one, my hands trembling with humiliation and rage. 3 more trips to bring out all the food. 3 more times walking past that table while they ate and talked and ignored my presence except to ask for water or wine or extra napkins. I ate alone in the kitchen, standing at the counter, scrolling through emails on my phone. There was a message from Harrison's assistant, asking me to schedule a meeting for next week to discuss the integration strategy. There was a note from Jeffrey, telling me again that I deserved better than this. And there was a text from my mother. "Clean up the kitchen before you go to bed, and the bathrooms need scrubbing tomorrow." I looked around the kitchen, at the mess from cooking for people who would never thank me, at the life I had somehow accepted as normal. Jeffrey was right. This was not complicated. This was a choice I made every day to stay in a place where I was not valued, not respected, not seen as anything beyond a servant. And for the first time, I considered what might happen if I stopped choosing this. The following week brought a momentum I had never experienced before at Westfield. Harrison's endorsement had changed everything. Suddenly, people who had barely acknowledged me in the hallways were stopping to congratulate me. Senior executives I had never spoken to were emailing me directly, asking to set up meetings. My proposal was being circulated at the highest levels of the company, and my name was attached to it in ways that felt both thrilling and terrifying. On Wednesday morning, I arrived at the office to find an email from Human Resources. The subject line read, "Compensation Review and Title Change." My heart raced as I opened it. Effective immediately, I was being promoted to Director of Strategic Acquisitions, with a salary increase that was nearly 40% higher than what I had been making. I read the email 3 times, making sure I had not misunderstood. This was real. This was happening. Jeffrey appeared at my desk with coffee, a ritual that had become our morning routine. "You look happy," he said. "Good news?" I showed him the email. His eyes widened. "Director? Cecilia, that is incredible. How many people jump 2 levels in one promotion? I still cannot believe it is real." "Believe it. You earned this. When are you going to tell your family?" The question made my stomach tighten. I had not told them about the deal, about Harrison's praise, about any of it. Every night, I came home to the same routine. Cook dinner, clean up, listen to Gregory talk about his day while my parents hung on his every word, and then disappear to my room to prepare for the next day. "I do not know," I said. "They are not really interested in my work." "Then make them interested." "Cecilia, you are about to be one of the highest paid people in your age bracket at this entire company. You need to start acting like it." He was right, but the thought of demanding respect from people who had spent 29 years teaching me I did not deserve it felt impossible. That afternoon, I had my first meeting with Harrison to discuss the Helix acquisition timeline. His office was on the executive floor, a space I had only visited a handful of times. The walls were covered with framed photos from his various companies, awards from industry organizations, and a collection of abstract art that probably cost more than my annual salary. Harrison was on the phone when his assistant showed me in, but he gestured for me to sit. I took a seat across from his desk and waited, trying not to look as nervous as I felt. "Understood," Harrison said into the phone. "We will revisit that in the next quarter. Thank you." He hung up and focused his full attention on me. "Cecilia, congratulations on the promotion. Well deserved." "Thank you. I was not expecting it." "You should have been. That proposal was the best work I have seen from anyone at this company in the past year. You have a talent for seeing opportunities that others miss." We spent the next hour discussing the acquisition strategy. Harrison asked probing questions about every aspect of the deal. But unlike the board members who had questioned me to find flaws, his questions were designed to strengthen the approach. He was teaching me, I realized, sharing insights from his decades of experience in ways that made me see the acquisition from angles I had not considered. "The key to successful integration is communication," he said. "Everyone at Helix needs to understand that we are not destroying what they built. We are enhancing it. You will need to meet with their leadership team, build relationships, make them see you as a partner rather than a conqueror." "When do we start?" "Next week. I am flying to Boston to meet with their CEO. I want you to come with me." I blinked. "To Boston?" 3 days. We will need to tour their facilities, meet the team, review their processes. This is your deal, Cecilia. You need to own every aspect of it." Flying to Boston with Harrison felt surreal, but I agreed immediately. This was the opportunity I had been working toward for years. When I left his office, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Pick up groceries on your way home. List is on the counter." I stared at the message, at the casual way she assumed I would drop everything to run her errands, and something inside me shifted. I texted back, "I cannot today. I have work obligations." Her response came within seconds. "Excuse me?" I took a breath and typed, "I have important meetings this week. I will pick up groceries on Saturday." She called immediately. I let it go to voicemail. When I got home that evening at 8, having stayed late to prepare for the Boston trip, the house was dark except for the living room. My parents and Gregory were watching television, and the kitchen was a disaster. Apparently, they had ordered pizza, and no one had bothered to clean up the boxes, plates, or the spilled soda on the counter. My mother looked up when I walked in. "Where have you been?" "Working. I told you I had obligations. We needed groceries. Your father wanted to make his special pasta sauce, and we had nothing. Then someone else could have gone to the store." The room went silent. Gregory paused the television. My father turned to stare at me. "What did you just say?" my mother asked. "I said someone else could have gone to the store. I was at work. I had meetings that could not be rescheduled. Your work is not more important than family responsibilities. Actually, my work just earned me a major promotion. I am now Director of Strategic Acquisitions, and next week I am flying to Boston with a director worth over $200 million to close a deal that I negotiated. I had not planned to tell them like this, had not planned to tell them at all, really. But the words came out in a rush, propelled by months of frustration and the realization that I was tired of being invisible in my own life. My father muted the television. "A promotion?" he said. "Yes. A significant one. My salary just increased by 40%. Gregory laughed. "Right. Sure it did. I am serious. I can show you the email from Human Resources." "Let me get this straight," my mother said. "You think getting some minor promotion at your little job means you can ignore your responsibilities here?" "My little job just landed a $6 million acquisition deal. The board approved my proposal yesterday and I am leading the integration team." My father stood up. "Watch your tone. We raised you better than to be disrespectful." "I am not being disrespectful. I am trying to tell you about something important that happened in my life." "What is important is family," my mother said. "What is important is understanding your role in this household." "My role? You mean being your servant?" The words hung in the air, and I saw my mother's face flush with anger. "How dare you?" she said. "How dare I? I cook every meal, I clean every room, I run every errand, and I do it all while working 60-hour weeks at a job that apparently none of you take seriously." "You live under our roof," my father said. "As long as you are here, you follow our rules. Then maybe I should not be here." I had not meant to say it, but once the words were out, I realized I meant them. The argument escalated quickly. My parents stood together, a united front of indignation and disbelief that I would dare question the arrangement that had served them so well. Gregory watched from the couch, looking uncomfortable for the first time in his life. "You are being ungrateful," my mother said, "after everything we have done for you." "What have you done for me?" "You have given me a room and meals, which I pay for by being your unpaid housekeeper. We raised you, educated you, gave you opportunities. You gave Gregory opportunities. You celebrated his mediocre achievements while ignoring my actual successes. When was the last time either of you asked about my job? When was the last time you showed any interest in my life beyond what I could do for you?" My father stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. "You are out of line." "No, I am finally being honest. I have spent my entire adult life trying to earn your respect, and I am done. I am tired of being treated like I exist, only to make your lives easier." "Where is this coming from?" my mother demanded. "Did someone at your work put these ideas in your head?" "These ideas? You mean the idea that I deserve basic respect? That came from me, from years of watching you treat me like hired help while praising Gregory for doing nothing." Gregory finally spoke. "That is not fair." "It is completely fair. You have never cooked a meal, cleaned a room, or run an errand in your entire life. You live here rent-free, work part-time at a job our father got you, and everyone acts like you are some kind of success story." "That is enough," my father said. But I was not done. 29 years of swallowed words were pouring out, and I could not have stopped them if I wanted to. Do you know what happened at work this week? A man who has built multiple billion-dollar companies shook my hand and told me my work was exceptional. He told me I had a rare combination of skills. He promoted me on the spot and asked me to fly across the country with him to close a deal that will generate millions in revenue. And I came home that night and plated dinner for your friends while Dad made jokes about me being good for cleaning. My mother's face had gone pale. You are being dramatic. I am being honest. There is a difference. If you are so unhappy here, then leave, my father said. We are not keeping you prisoner. You are right. You are not. And maybe it is time I took you up on that. I turned and walked upstairs to my room, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might be sick. I closed the door, sat on the bed, and tried to process what had just happened. My phone buzzed. A text from Jeffrey. How did it go? I called him instead of texting back. That bad? He said when he answered. I just told my parents I am moving out. Good. When? I do not know. I did not exactly plan this. Start looking for apartments tomorrow. You make enough now to afford something decent. And Cecilia? You did the right thing. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and started searching for rental listings. One-bedroom apartments in decent neighborhoods were expensive, but with my new salary, they were manageable. I bookmarked several options, feeling a mixture of terror and exhilaration. There was a knock on my door. I expected my mother, ready to continue the argument. But it was Gregory. Can I come in? I nodded, and he sat in the chair by my desk, looking more serious than I had ever seen him. That was intense, he said. It needed to happen. I know I have been... He paused, searching for words. I have taken advantage. Of you. Of the situation. Yes, you have. I did not realize how bad it was. Or maybe I did, and I just did not want to acknowledge it. I said nothing, waiting. For what it is worth, I am sorry. And congratulations on the promotion. That is actually really impressive. It was not much, but it was more than he had ever given me before. Thank you, I said. Are you really going to move out? Yes. I cannot keep living like this. He nodded slowly. I get it. And for what it is worth, I think you should. You deserve better than being everyone's maid. After he left, I spent the rest of the night looking at apartments and calculating budgets. By the time I went to sleep at midnight, I had scheduled 3 apartment viewings for the weekend. The next morning, I woke early, skipped making breakfast for everyone, and left for work before anyone else was awake. It felt both liberating and terrifying. At the office, I threw myself into preparing for the Boston trip. Harrison had sent over a detailed agenda. Meetings with Helix's executive team, tours of their research facilities, dinner with their chief scientist. I studied their company history, memorized the names and backgrounds of everyone we would be meeting, and prepared questions that would demonstrate I understood their work. Friday afternoon, Harrison's assistant called me. The director wanted me to confirm your travel arrangements. You are flying out Sunday evening, correct? Yes, that is correct. Perfect. He also wanted to let you know that there will be a dinner Monday night with some potential investors. Business casual attire. I made notes, feeling the weight of responsibility settling over me. This was not just about proving myself anymore. This was about representing the company, about making sure this acquisition succeeded, about living up to Harrison's faith in me. When I got home Friday evening, my mother was waiting in the kitchen. We need to talk, she said. I have nothing more to say. Your father and I have been discussing your behavior this week. We are willing to overlook it if you apologize and commit to being more responsible about your household duties. I stared at her, amazed that she thought an apology from me was what this situation required. I am moving out, I said. I have apartment viewings tomorrow, and I will be out of here by the end of the month. You cannot be serious. I am completely serious. I am 29 years old, I make a substantial salary, and I am done living in a house where I am treated like staff. This is about that job, is it not? They have convinced you that you are more important than you actually are. No, this is about me finally realizing what I am worth. And it is worth more than cooking your meals and scrubbing your floors while you tell people I am good for cleaning. My mother's expression hardened. Fine, leave. But do not come crying back when you realize how difficult life is outside this house. I will not, I said. That weekend, I viewed 5 apartments and signed a lease on a 1-bedroom place in Lincoln Park. It was small but bright, with hardwood floors and a kitchen that was entirely mine. Move-in date was 3 weeks away, which gave me time to prepare. Sunday evening, I packed for Boston and left the house without saying goodbye to anyone. My parents were giving me the silent treatment, and Gregory was avoiding eye contact. Part of me felt guilty for disrupting the family peace, but a larger part of me felt free. The flight to Boston was smooth, and I spent most of it reviewing documents and preparing for the week ahead. Harrison was seated in first class while I was in economy, but I did not mind. This trip was about proving I could handle the responsibility he had given me, not about perks. When we landed, a car was waiting to take us to the hotel. Harrison made phone calls during the ride, speaking in the clipped, efficient manner of someone who had no time to waste. I looked out the window at the city passing by, trying to calm my nerves. The hotel was downtown, modern and expensive. I checked into my room, changed into professional attire, and met Harrison in the lobby 30 minutes later. "Ready?" he asked. "Absolutely." Our first meeting was with the CEO of Helix Innovations, a woman named Victoria, who had founded the company 15 years ago in her garage. She was brilliant, driven, and deeply protective of the company she had built. I had studied her background extensively, knew about her previous career as a research scientist, knew about the personal connection she had to the disease her company was trying to treat. Victoria's office was in a converted warehouse in Cambridge, all exposed brick and industrial lighting. She greeted us warmly, but I could see the wariness in her eyes. She was evaluating us, deciding whether we were worthy of the company she had created. Harrison let me lead the conversation. I explained our vision for the acquisition, how we planned to maintain Helix's innovative culture while providing the resources they needed to accelerate their development timeline. I spoke about the patient population, about the impact their treatment could have, about our commitment to bringing their work to market without compromising their standards. Victoria listened carefully, asking pointed questions about our manufacturing capabilities, our regulatory expertise, our long-term strategy. I answered each question with specifics, showing her that I had done my homework, that I understood not just the business opportunity, but the scientific mission behind it. 2 hours into the meeting, Victoria leaned back in her chair and smiled. "I have met with 5 potential acquirers in the past 6 months," she said. "You are the first one who talked about patients before profit margins." "The profit margins only work if we get the science right," I said. "Exactly." She looked at Harrison. "You have a good one here. Make sure you do not waste her." "I have no intention of wasting her," Harrison said. "Cecilia is leading this integration because she understands what you have built. She respects it." The meeting ended with Victoria agreeing to move forward with due diligence. As we left her office, Harrison turned to me. "That was masterful. She was ready to say no to this deal before we walked in. You changed her mind." I just told her the truth. Most people cannot tell the truth that effectively. That evening, we had dinner with Helix's chief scientist, a man named Thomas, who was responsible for the breakthrough treatment that had caught my attention months ago. He was quieter than Victoria, more cautious but equally passionate about the work. Over dinner, Thomas described the challenges they had faced in development, the setbacks and breakthroughs, the moment when they realized they had created something that could genuinely change lives. I asked questions about the science, about the clinical trials, about his vision for future applications. "You actually understand this," Thomas said at one point. "Most business people just nod and pretend to follow." "I did my graduate research in biochemistry before switching to business," I said. "I could not do what you do, but I understand enough to appreciate it." Thomas and Harrison exchanged a look that I could not quite interpret. After dinner, back at the hotel, I was exhausted but satisfied. The meetings had gone better than I could have hoped. Victoria and Thomas both seemed genuinely interested in working with us, which was crucial for a successful acquisition. I called Jeffrey to update him. "You are killing it," he said. "How does it feel?" "Terrifying and amazing in equal measure." "That is how you know you are doing something worthwhile. Any word from your family?" Radio silence, which is honestly a relief. "You are better off. Seriously, Cecilia, you are about to be running a major acquisition. You do not need people in your life who cannot see your value." After we hung up, I lay in bed thinking about how much had changed in just 1 week. A promotion, a confrontation with my family, an apartment lease, and now this trip to Boston that could define my career for years to come. The next 2 days were a whirlwind of meetings, facility tours, and negotiations. I met with Helix's entire leadership team, reviewed their financial records, toured their research labs, and spent hours discussing integration strategies. Harrison observed most of these meetings without interfering, letting me take the lead while he evaluated my performance. On our last evening in Boston, Harrison invited me to dinner at an upscale restaurant overlooking the harbor. "This week has been instructive," he said after we ordered. "I wanted to see how you handled pressure, how you built relationships, how you represented the company in high-stakes situations. And you exceeded my expectations, which is not easy to do. I have been in this industry for 30 years, Cecilia. I have seen countless talented people flame out because they lacked either the technical skills or the interpersonal skills to succeed at the highest levels. You have both. Thank you. That means a lot. I am telling you this because I want you to understand something. You have a future at Westfield that extends far beyond this acquisition. I am looking at the long term here. In 5 years, I see you running an entire division. In 10 years, I could see you on the executive team." The words should have filled me with confidence, but instead they made me think about my parents, about how they had never seen any future for me beyond their kitchen. "Something wrong?" Harrison asked. "No. I was just thinking about how different my life is from what I expected it would be. Is that good or bad?" "Good. Definitely good. But strange to reconcile." He nodded. "Success often means outgrowing the expectations others set for you. Some people in your life will celebrate that. Others will resent it. You need to be prepared for both." We flew back to Chicago on Wednesday afternoon. I spent the flight drafting an integration timeline and preparing for the formal announcement of the acquisition, which would happen in 2 weeks. When I landed, I had 17 missed calls from my mother and a voicemail that I deleted without listening to. I also had a message from the apartment complex confirming my move-in date, November 1st, exactly 2 weeks away. I was ready. The formal announcement of the Helix acquisition was scheduled for the first week of November. The company was planning a major event to reveal the deal to employees, investors, and the media. As the lead on the acquisition, I would be presenting alongside Harrison and the CEO of Westfield. The pressure should have been overwhelming, but instead, I felt focused and energized. I had spent weeks preparing, and I knew this acquisition inside and out. What I did not anticipate was my mother showing up at my office 2 days before the announcement. I was reviewing presentation notes when the receptionist called. "Cecilia, there is someone here to see you. She says she is your mother?" My stomach dropped. "Send her up." 5 minutes later, my mother appeared at my desk, wearing her expensive coat and the pearls my father had given her for their anniversary. She looked around the office with an expression that was half curiosity, half disdain. "So this is where you work," she said. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk. In private." I led her to a small conference room, my mind racing. This could not be good. Once the door was closed, my mother sat down and folded her hands on the table. "Your father and I have decided to give you another chance," she said. "Another chance at what?" "To come home. To apologize for your behavior and return to the family." I stared at her. "You came all the way to my office to tell me that?" "We have been very patient with this tantrum of yours. But enough is enough. You have made your point. Now it is time to be reasonable. This is not a tantrum. I am moving into my own apartment in 3 days. That is ridiculous. You cannot afford to live alone in Chicago." "I can, actually. My salary is quite substantial now." She waved a hand dismissively. "Whatever they are paying you cannot be that impressive. It is over $150,000 annually." My mother's expression flickered. "That cannot be right." "It is. Along with bonuses that could add another $30,000. I am one of the highest paid directors at this company." "A director? You said you got promoted, but I thought you meant to some minor management position." "No, I am director of strategic acquisitions. I report directly to the executive team, and in 2 days, I am presenting at a major company event that will be attended by some of the most influential people in the pharmaceutical industry." My mother sat back, processing this information. I could see her recalculating, adjusting her understanding of what my life actually looked like outside the house where she had spent years treating me as invisible. "I see," she said finally. "Well, that is certainly unexpected." "Is that all you have to say?" "What do you want me to say? How about congratulations? How about telling me you are proud? How about acknowledging that I have built a career that you and Dad never believed I was capable of?" "We always believed in you." "No, you did not. You believed I was good for cleaning. Those were Dad's exact words." My mother's face flushed. He was joking. It did not feel like a joke. It felt like the truth of how you both see me. "You are being oversensitive. I am being honest, and I am done pretending that your treatment of me is acceptable." There was a knock on the conference room door. Jeffrey poked his head in. "Sorry to interrupt, but Harrison is looking for you. The presentation run-through starts in 10 minutes. "I will be right there," I said. My mother stood. "Who is Harrison?" "The director I have been working with, the one worth over $200 million. I would like to meet him." "No." "Excuse me?" I said no. You do not get to show up here and suddenly act interested in my work. You do not get to meet my colleagues or pretend to be a supportive mother. You have never cared about any of this, and I am not going to let you use my success to make yourself feel important. How dare you speak to me like that? How dare you treat me like a servant for 29 years and then act offended when I finally stand up for myself? I walked out of the conference room, leaving my mother standing there with her mouth open. My hands were shaking, but my head was clear. Jeffrey was waiting in the hallway. "Everything okay?" he asked. "It will be." The presentation run-through went smoothly. Harrison had notes, as always, but they were minor adjustments to timing and emphasis. The content was solid, the visuals were compelling, and the story we were telling about Helix and Westfield was one that would resonate with our audience. After the run-through, Harrison pulled me aside. "I saw an older woman leaving the building earlier. She looked upset." "That was my mother." "The one who thinks you are good for cleaning? You heard about that?" "Jeffrey mentioned it. He is worried about you." "I am fine. Better than fine, actually." Harrison studied me for a moment. "Family can be complicated. If you need to take time to deal with personal matters, the presentation can be rescheduled." "No, I have spent too long letting my family dictate my priorities. This presentation is happening exactly as planned." He smiled. "Good. I was hoping you would say that." That evening, I went to my new apartment to start moving in. I had hired movers to bring my furniture from my parents' house, but I wanted to personally handle my clothes, books, and personal items. The apartment felt like a sanctuary. It was small, but it was mine. No one would tell me to clean floors that were already clean. No one would wake me up with demands for breakfast. No one would dismiss my achievements or make me feel small. I stood in the empty living room and felt something close to peace. My phone buzzed. A text from Gregory. "Mom came home crying. She says you were cruel to her at your office. What happened?" I typed back. "I told her the truth. She did not like it. She says you refused to let her meet your boss. She does not get to show up and pretend to care about my career. She had 29 years to show interest." "Fair enough. For what it is worth, I think you are doing the right thing. Moving out, I mean. This house is toxic." His message surprised me, but I appreciated it. The day of the announcement arrived. I woke up in my new apartment for the first time, made coffee in my own kitchen, and got dressed in a suit that I had bought specifically for this occasion. Navy blue, perfectly tailored, expensive enough to signal that I belonged on that stage. The event was being held at a hotel downtown, in a ballroom that could hold 300 people. I arrived early to do a final technical check and found the room already buzzing with activity. Audiovisual technicians were testing equipment, catering staff were setting up, and Westfield's communications team was arranging press materials. Harrison arrived 20 minutes later, looking calm and confident as always. "Big day," he said. "Very big." "Nervous?" "A little, but mostly excited." "Good. Channel that energy into the presentation. Let people see your passion for this work." As the ballroom filled with attendees, I recognized faces from the board, senior executives from Westfield, journalists from major industry publications, and potential investors who Harrison had personally invited. This was not just an announcement. It was a showcase, a demonstration of Westfield's strategic vision and growth potential. And I was at the center of it. At 10 a.m., the event began. The CEO of Westfield spoke first, giving an overview of the company's performance and future direction. Then, Harrison took the stage, explaining why the Helix acquisition represented a pivotal moment for Westfield's position in the pharmaceutical industry. And then, it was my turn. I walked to the podium, connected my laptop, and looked out at the audience. 300 faces looking back at me, waiting to hear what I had to say. I began by telling Victoria's story, about a scientist who had turned personal tragedy into a mission to help others. I explained the science behind Helix's treatment, making it accessible without oversimplifying. I walked through the market opportunity, the revenue projections, the strategic advantages this acquisition would create. I spoke for 20 minutes, and when I finished, the room erupted in applause. Harrison returned to the stage and shook my hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the future of Westfield Pharmaceuticals," he said. "This is the kind of strategic thinking and execution that will drive this company forward for the next decade. Cecilia has not only identified an exceptional opportunity, but she has built the relationships and developed the integration plan that will make this acquisition a success. We are grateful to have someone of her caliber on our team." The words echoed the ones he had spoken in the board meeting, but hearing them in front of this audience felt different. This was public validation, a statement to everyone in the industry that I was someone to be taken seriously. After the formal presentation, there was a reception where attendees could network and ask questions. I was immediately surrounded by people wanting to know more about the acquisition, about my background, about my plans for integration. I was talking to a group of investors when I saw her. My mother, standing near the entrance to the ballroom, wearing her most expensive dress, and scanning the room like she was looking for someone. She spotted me and started walking over. I felt my stomach clench, but I kept my expression neutral. "Cecilia," she said when she reached me. "That was quite the presentation." The investors I had been talking to looked between us, sensing tension. "Excuse me," I said to them. "I need to speak with my mother." I led her to a quiet corner of the room. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "You are my daughter. I wanted to see your big moment." "No, you wanted to be part of my big moment. There is a difference." "Why are you being like this?" "I am trying to support you." "You are trying to take credit for something you had no part in. You spent years making me feel worthless, and now that I have proven myself, you want to show up and act like a proud mother. That is not fair. It is completely fair. Where were you when I was working 80-hour weeks trying to get this deal approved? Where were you when I was presenting to the board? Where were you when I needed someone to believe in me?" My mother's eyes filled with tears, but I felt nothing. These were manipulative tears, the kind she used when she wanted to make someone else feel guilty for her own behavior. "I am your mother," she said. "Then act like it. Not now, when it is convenient for you, but always. Support me when I am struggling, not just when I am succeeding. Respect my work, even when it means you have to make your own dinner." Harrison appeared beside us. "Cecilia, there are some people I would like you to meet," he said, then looked at my mother. "I am sorry. I do not believe we have met." My mother immediately shifted into her charm mode, extending her hand. "I am Cecilia's mother. You must be Director Harrison. My daughter has told me so much about you." Harrison shook her hand, but his smile did not reach his eyes. I realized he knew exactly who she was and what she represented. "Has she?" he said. "That is interesting, because Cecilia has told me quite a bit about you as well." My mother's smile faltered. "She has told me," Harrison continued, "about how she balances an incredibly demanding career with family obligations that most people would find unreasonable. She has told me about working late into the night and then waking early to cook breakfast for people who never thank her. She has told me about being told she is good for cleaning, even as she was closing a $6 million deal." My mother's face went pale. "I think," Harrison said, "that you should be extraordinarily proud of your daughter. She is one of the most talented professionals I have had the privilege of working with, but based on what she has shared with me, I suspect that pride is not something she has experienced from her family." "You do not understand our relationship," my mother said weakly. "I understand that Cecilia is exceptional and that she has succeeded despite, not because of, her family's support. Now, if you will excuse us, we have investors to speak with." He guided me away, leaving my mother standing alone in the corner. "Thank you," I whispered. "You do not need to thank me for telling the truth," he said. The rest of the reception passed in a blur of conversations and congratulations. Several senior executives from other pharmaceutical companies approached me about potential opportunities. Journalists asked for interviews. Investors wanted to discuss the financial projections in more detail. Through it all, I kept catching glimpses of my mother, still in the ballroom, watching me from various corners of the room. She never approached again, but her presence was a constant reminder of everything I had overcome to get here. Near the end of the event, I saw my father enter the ballroom. He must have come looking for my mother. They met near the entrance, and I watched as she spoke to him urgently, gesturing in my direction. His face went through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, and finally something that might have been shame. They left without saying goodbye. Jeffrey found me as the event was winding down. "That was incredible," he said. "You absolutely killed it. And did I just see Harrison put your mother in her place? You saw that? Everyone saw that. It is already the talk of the office. Apparently a director worth $200 million just publicly validated you while calling out your family's treatment of you. I did not want it to be public. Maybe not, but it needed to happen. Your family has been dismissing your accomplishments for years. Now they know exactly how valuable you are, and they know that other people see it too." He was right. My mother had shown up expecting to bask in reflected glory, to play the role of the proud parent. Instead, she had been confronted with the reality of how she had treated me and had been called out for it in front of the people whose opinions I actually valued. That evening, I went back to my new apartment and collapsed on the couch. My phone had been buzzing constantly with messages of congratulation from colleagues, but I ignored them all for the moment. I needed quiet, needed space to process everything that had happened. Around 8 p.m., there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Gregory. I opened the door. "How did you find my address?" I asked. "I asked Jeffrey. Hope that is okay." "What do you want?" "To apologize. Properly this time." I let him in. He looked around the apartment, taking in the space that was so completely different from our parents' house. "This is nice," he said. "It is mine. That is what makes it nice." He sat on the couch, and I took the chair across from him. "I heard what happened at your event today," he said. "Mom came home and told Dad everything. She was furious and humiliated and crying." "Good. She deserved it. They both do. I have been thinking a lot since you moved out, about how messed up things have been. I benefited from the way they treated you, and I never said anything. I let it happen." "Yes, you did. I am sorry, really, genuinely sorry, and I wanted you to know that I told them tonight that they were wrong, about everything. About how they treated you, about not respecting your career, about expecting you to be their servant." "How did they take it?" "Not well. Dad tried to defend their behavior, said they were just trying to teach you responsibility. I told him that was garbage, that they taught you that your value was tied to how much you could do for other people." "What did Mom say?" "She said you humiliated her in front of important people. I told her she humiliated herself by showing up at an event celebrating your success when she has never supported you." I felt tears prickling at my eyes. "Thank you. That means more than you know. You deserve better than what they gave you. And you definitely deserve better than what I gave you." After Gregory left, I sat alone in my apartment and thought about everything that had changed in the past month. A promotion, a successful acquisition, a new home, and finally the confrontation with my family that I had needed for years. My phone buzzed. A text from Harrison. "Excellent work today. Take tomorrow off. You have earned it." I smiled and set the phone down. The next morning, I woke up without an alarm for the first time in years. No one was pounding on my door demanding breakfast. No one was leaving me lists of errands to run. No one was treating my rest as less important than their convenience. I made coffee, sat by the window, and watched the city wake up. My mother called twice. I did not answer. My father left a voicemail that I deleted without listening. But around noon, my phone rang with a number I did not recognize. "Hello? Cecilia? This is Victoria from Helix. I hope I am not calling at a bad time." "Not at all. How are you?" "I am wonderful. I just watched the recording of your presentation yesterday. It was brilliant. I called to tell you how grateful I am that you will be leading our integration. You understand what we have built, and that means everything." We talked for 20 minutes about the timeline, about her team's excitement, about the future. When we hung up, I felt a profound sense of satisfaction. This was what I had been working toward. This was what success looked like. 2 weeks later, the Helix acquisition was officially completed. The integration process began, and I spent my days building relationships with their team, solving problems, and making sure the transition was smooth. It was exhausting and exhilarating work, and I loved every minute of it. My parents called less frequently as the weeks passed. When they did call, the conversations were stilted and uncomfortable. They could not seem to accept that I was no longer available to meet their every need, and I had stopped trying to make them understand. Gregory, surprisingly, kept in touch. He called every week or so, updating me on his life and asking about mine. He had started taking on more responsibilities at home, cooking meals and cleaning up after himself. It was a small change, but it was something. 6 months after the acquisition, Harrison called me into his office. "Have a seat," he said. "I have a proposition for you." "What kind of proposition?" "The Helix integration has been flawless, better than anyone expected. You have exceeded every benchmark we set, and Victoria's team is thriving under Westfield's resources. Thank you. They made it easy. They made it easy because you made it easy for them. You understood that successful integration is not about imposing our culture on theirs. It is about finding ways to blend the best of both." "Where is this going?" "I am stepping back from day-to-day operations at Westfield. Not retiring, but reducing my involvement. I want to spend more time with other ventures, which means we need someone to take over my strategic advisory role." I felt my heart start to race. "I am recommending you for the position," Harrison said. "It would make you the youngest member of the executive leadership team in Westfield's history. You would report directly to the CEO, oversee all strategic acquisitions, and have a voice in every major decision the company makes." I do not know what to say. "Say yes." I laughed. "Yes, obviously yes." "Good. The board will vote on it next week, but given your track record, I do not anticipate any objections." As I left his office, I thought about how different my life was from a year ago. I thought about standing in my parents' kitchen, making breakfast for people who would never appreciate it, being told I was good for cleaning. I thought about the moment Harrison had shaken my hand and told me we were grateful to have someone of my caliber. And I thought about my mother's face when she heard those words, when she finally understood that I had built something she could not diminish or dismiss. That evening I called Gregory. "How are Mom and Dad doing?" I asked. "Struggling, honestly. They hired someone to help with cooking and cleaning. She quit after 2 weeks because Mom was so demanding. They have gone through 3 people in 6 months. Good. Cold. Accurate. They spent years taking advantage of me. Now they are learning what my labor was actually worth." "Fair enough. How are you?" "I am about to be promoted again. Executive leadership team." "Holy shit, Cecilia. That is amazing." "It is. And the best part is that I did it completely on my own. No help from them, no support, nothing. Just my work and my talent." "You deserve every bit of it." After we hung up, I stood at my apartment window and looked out at the city lights. I thought about the journey that had brought me here, about the pain and struggle and eventual triumph. My parents had spent years trying to make me small, trying to convince me that my value was measured in how much I could do for them. They had failed spectacularly, and watching them face the consequences of their cruelty was more satisfying than I could have imagined. In the months that followed, my father developed health issues that required more care than my mother could provide alone. They hired nurses, spent money they had been hoarding for retirement, and struggled with the reality that their daughter, the one they had treated as a servant, was thriving while they suffered the natural consequences of their behavior. My mother tried to reach out several times, but her messages were filled with complaints rather than apologies. She never acknowledged how she had treated me, never took responsibility for the years of dismissal and disrespect. Eventually, her calls stopped altogether. Gregory told me they spoke about me sometimes, usually with regret, occasionally with bitterness, but never with understanding. They had lost their unpaid housekeeper and gained nothing in return, learning far too late that relationships require respect, and that children are not servants to be commanded. The 3 housekeepers who had worked for them after I left had all quit, citing impossible demands and constant criticism. My parents were reaping exactly what they had sown. I stood on the balcony of my apartment, looking out at the city that had given me everything my family never did. The executive title, the corner office, the respect of colleagues who valued my mind rather than my ability to scrub floors. I thought about that morning in their kitchen when my father had said I was good for cleaning, and I smiled. He had been wrong about what I was good at, but he had been right about one thing. I was good at removing dirt from my life, and that was exactly what I had done.